I was stirring the pasta sauce for dinner when Mom called with the news that hit me like a punch to the gut. Trevor, my younger brother who vanished 4 years ago with my ex-wife Amanda, was coming home for a visit. My hands trembled as I gripped the wooden spoon tighter. Mom sounded nervous, Dad was furious, and I felt a storm of emotions I thought I had buried long ago beginning to resurface. Would I finally get closure, or would old wounds reopen? If you are watching this right now, drop a comment telling me where you are viewing from. And if you have not already, hit that like button and subscribe. Have you ever had a family member betray your trust? Let me know as I tell you what happened when my brother and ex-wife showed up on my parents' doorstep after 4 years. Growing up, I believed in the perfect love story. Amanda and I met during our sophomore year at University of Michigan. I still remember the first time I saw her in our American literature class, confidently debating the symbolism in The Great Gatsby with our professor. Her intelligence, combined with her warm smile and auburn hair that caught the sunlight through the classroom windows, captivated me immediately. It took me 3 weeks to work up the courage to talk to her after class. When I finally did, we ended up walking to a nearby coffee shop and talking for 4 straight hours. From that day on, we were inseparable. Our 5-year courtship felt like something out of a storybook. We supported each other through final exams, celebrated job offers, and dreamed about our future together. The proposal was simple but meaningful. On a camping trip to Lake Superior, I asked her to marry me as the sun set over the water. The wedding followed a year later. Nothing extravagant, just family and close friends, gathering at a small venue near our hometown in Michigan. Everyone commented on how perfectly matched we seemed, how our vows to each other felt genuine rather than rehearsed. After the wedding, we settled into a comfortable life together. I had secured a position at a growing technology firm where I was quickly advancing. Amanda worked as a marketing coordinator for a local company. We bought a modest house in a nice neighborhood and filled it with furniture plants and plans for the future. Children were on the horizon, we thought. Maybe in another year or two, once we were more financially stable. I believed we had everything figured out. Sure, we had disagreements like any couple, but they were minor storms that passed quickly. At least that is what I told myself at the time. Looking back, there were signs that something was missing for Amanda, but I was too blinded by my own contentment to notice. Trevor and I shared the typical brotherly relationship growing up. Being 3 years younger, he naturally looked up to me when we were kids. I taught him how to ride a bike, helped him with his homework, and defended him when neighborhood bullies gave him trouble. We built tree forts together, went fishing with Dad on weekends, and shared secrets that our parents never knew about. But something shifted as Trevor entered his teenage years. The admiration in his eyes gradually turned into something else. Competitiveness, perhaps, or resentment. He began to view everything through the lens of comparison. If I made the honor roll, he had to make the high honor roll. When I joined the track team, he had to break my records. Each of my achievements seemed to diminish his own unless he could surpass me. Our parents noticed this change too, but they chalked it up to normal sibling rivalry. Dad would say, "A little competition never hurt anyone. It will push you both to be your best." But it went beyond healthy competition. Trevor seemed determined to prove he was better than me at everything, even if it meant cutting corners or undermining my efforts. This pattern continued into adulthood. When I got my first car, Trevor had to get a nicer one even though he could barely afford the payments. When I bought my house, Trevor complained it was in a boring neighborhood and said he would live somewhere more exciting when he had the money. These were red flags that I ignored, believing he would eventually outgrow this behavior. When I introduced Trevor to Amanda at a family dinner 6 years ago, I noticed something that should have alarmed me. The way his eyes lingered on her a second too long. How he laughed a little too enthusiastically at her jokes. How he found reasons to mention her in conversation, even when she was not around. But I dismissed these observations. He was my brother, and Amanda was my wife. Some lines would never be crossed, or so I naively believed. Over the next year, Trevor became a regular visitor at our home. He would stop by unannounced often, when he knew I would be working late. I thought nothing of it at first. In fact, I was pleased that my wife and brother got along so well. Amanda would mention that Trevor had helped her with a home repair, or that they had bumped into each other at the grocery store, small coincidences that in retrospect were not coincidences at all. The day everything fell apart was supposed to be special. It was our second wedding anniversary, and I had planned to surprise Amanda by coming home early from work. I had made dinner reservations at her favorite restaurant and purchased tickets to a show she had been wanting to see. I even stopped to buy flowers on my way home. When I walked into our bedroom, I found her suitcase open on the bed, half filled with neatly folded clothes. At first, I thought she might be planning a surprise trip for us. "What is all this?" I asked, trying to keep my tone light. Amanda jumped, clearly startled by my presence. "Gage, you are home early," she said, her voice unnaturally high. "I wanted to surprise you for our anniversary." I replied, the flowers suddenly feeling heavy in my hand. Her face crumpled, guilt and sadness washing over her features. "I am so sorry. I did not want you to find out this way." Before she could explain further, her phone buzzed on the nightstand. I reached it before she could, and what I saw shattered my world. A text from Trevor: "Everything is packed in the car. Just waiting on you. Did you leave him a note?" Time seemed to stop as I looked from the phone to my wife of 2 years. Trevor was all I could manage to say. What followed was a confession that turned my life upside down. Amanda admitted that she and Trevor had been seeing each other for the past 8 months. She claimed they had not planned it, that it had just happened one day when he came over while I was at a business conference. "I never meant to hurt you," she said, tears streaming down her face. "But what Trevor and I have, it is different, more passionate, more real." Those words cut deeper than any knife could have. More real. Had our entire relationship been an illusion, Trevor arrived an hour later, walking into our house like he owned it. There was no shame in his eyes when he faced me, only a hint of triumph that made my blood boil. "You always get everything, Gage," he said, his voice eerily calm. "The grades, the job, the house. I figured it was my turn to have something you wanted." I lunged at him, then blind with rage, but Amanda stepped between us. "Please do not make this harder than it already is," she begged. They left together that evening. No real apology, no genuine remorse. Just two people who had betrayed me walking out the door with suitcases and plans I knew nothing about. As their car pulled away, I stood in the driveway, still holding the anniversary flowers that now seemed like a cruel joke. The aftermath was a blur of pain and disbelief. I had to explain to friends, coworkers, and extended family what had happened. Each retelling felt like ripping open the wound anew. My parents were devastated, particularly my father. Robert had always been proud of both his sons, but I could see in his eyes that he viewed Trevor's actions as an unforgivable betrayal of family. The divorce proceedings were mercifully quick, but emotionally draining. Amanda did not contest anything, seemingly eager to put our marriage behind her. I let her take whatever she wanted from our shared possessions. Material things held little meaning to me anymore. I later learned that Trevor and Amanda had moved to Seattle about as far as they could get from our Michigan hometown without leaving the continental United States. They did not even attend the final divorce hearing. It was as if they had erased me completely from their story. The 6 months following Trevor and Amanda's departure were the darkest of my life. I fell into a depression that seemed bottomless. Sleep eluded me most nights, and when it did come, it was plagued by dreams of betrayal and loss. I lost weight, called in sick to work frequently, and isolated myself from friends and family. My home, once a source of pride, became a prison of memories. Every room held echoes of my life with Amanda. The kitchen where we cooked together on Sunday mornings. The living room where we cuddled on the couch watching movies. The backyard where we had talked about building a playset for the children we would never have. I considered selling the house, but even that decision required more energy than I could muster. It was Jason, my best friend since elementary school, who finally broke through my isolation. After weeks of unanswered calls and texts, he showed up at my door with groceries and refused to leave. "I am staying until you shower and eat a proper meal," he announced, pushing past me into the house. That simple act of friendship began my slow journey back to myself. Jason started coming by regularly, sometimes just to watch a game on TV or share a beer in silence. He did not push me to talk about my feelings, but he was there when I eventually did. They are not worth destroying yourself over, he told me one night. The best revenge is living well. With Jason's encouragement, I finally sought professional help. Dr. Lewis, a therapist specializing in trauma and betrayal, helped me understand that what I was experiencing was a form of grief. I was mourning not just the loss of my wife and my brother, but the loss of my understanding of my own life. Everything I had believed about my marriage and my family had been proven false. Your story has been rewritten without your consent, she explained. Now you need to become the author again. Those words resonated deeply. For too long, I had been a character in someone else's narrative. It was time to reclaim my story. The first step was changing my environment. I applied for a transfer within my company and moved to their Chicago office. The bustle of the city, the anonymity of being somewhere new felt liberating. I found an apartment in Lincoln Park and gradually filled it with new furniture that carried no painful associations. At work, I threw myself into projects with renewed focus. My supervisor noticed the change and began giving me more responsibilities. Within a year, I was promoted to department manager, overseeing a team of 12 people. Physical transformation accompanied my career advancement. I joined a local gym and began working out regularly, not just to improve my appearance, but to channel my lingering anger into something productive. The routine of lifting weights, running, and practicing boxing gave structure to my days and exhausted me enough to finally sleep soundly at night. I also pursued new interests that Amanda had never shared. I took cooking classes, learning to prepare dishes more complex than the basic meals I had relied on. I joined a hiking group that explored trails around the Midwest on weekends. I even signed up for improv comedy workshops, something I would have been too self-conscious to try before. Each new experience, each new skill mastered, helped rebuild my shattered confidence. Slowly, I began to recognize the man in the mirror again, though he was not the same person he had been before. This version of me was more resilient, more independent, more authentically himself. It was at work that I met Natalie. She transferred to our Chicago office from Boston about 2 years after my divorce. As the project coordinator for my department, we worked closely together, but I kept things strictly professional at first. The idea of letting someone new into my life terrified me. Natalie was persistent, though. Not in a pushy way, but with small gestures that slowly broke down my walls. She would bring coffee to our morning meetings, remembering exactly how I took it. She would send me articles related to my interests without making a big deal of it. She would laugh at my attempts at humor when others missed the joke. After 6 months of this gentle pursuit, I finally agreed to have dinner with her outside of work. That night, sitting across from her at a small Italian restaurant, I found myself talking more openly than I had with anyone since Amanda left. I even told her about Trevor and the betrayal, something I usually avoided mentioning to new people in my life. "Thank you for trusting me with that," she said, reaching across the table to take my hand. "But you know what I see. I see someone who survived something that would break most people. That is far more interesting to me than what was done to you." With Natalie, I began to understand what a healthy relationship actually felt like. One based on mutual respect and genuine interest, rather than projection or possession. We moved slowly, both of us having past relationships that had ended painfully. But by the 3-year mark after my divorce, we were discussing moving in together. While my personal life was transforming, my relationship with my parents evolved as well. The shared pain of Trevor's betrayal created a new dimension to our bond. My father, Robert, had always been somewhat stoic, a man of few words who expressed his love through actions rather than emotional conversations. But Trevor's departure cracked something open in him. During my monthly visits home, we would sit on the back porch after dinner talking more deeply than we ever had before. "I keep wondering where we went wrong with him," Dad confessed during one such conversation. "Was it something we did or did not do?" "This is not on you, Dad," I assured him. "Trevor made his choices. We all have the same opportunities to be decent human beings. Mom took longer to come to terms with what happened. Martha Williams had always been the peacekeeper in our family, the one who smoothed over conflicts and looked for the best in everyone. Even after what Trevor did, she could not entirely shut him out of her heart. "He is still my son," she would say, when Dad or I expressed frustration at her occasional contact with him. "I can love him without approving of what he did." Through these conversations, I came to understand that forgiveness does not mean forgetting or excusing. It means freeing yourself from the burden of resentment. I was not ready to forgive Trevor or Amanda, but watching my mother navigate her own complex feelings helped me see that reconciliation might someday be possible. From time to time, Mom would share small updates about Trevor and Amanda's life together, never in great detail, and always carefully as if testing whether I was ready to hear it. I learned that they had not married, which secretly gave me some satisfaction. I heard about their frequent arguments, about Trevor's inability to hold down a steady job, about Amanda's apparent discontent with their situation. Most surprisingly, I learned that Amanda had reached out to my mother several times, expressing regret about how things had ended. "She asks about you," Mom admitted once. "I tell her, you are doing well. That is all she deserves to know." I appreciated my mother's discretion. The thought of Amanda knowing anything about my current life made me uncomfortable. Let her wonder. Let her imagine. I owed her no updates. As the 4th anniversary of their departure approached, I had achieved a peace I once thought impossible. I had a fulfilling career, a loving relationship with Natalie, a new home I had purchased in Chicago, and a hard-won understanding of myself. The pain had not disappeared entirely, but it had transformed into something manageable, even occasionally useful, as a reminder of how far I had come. Then came the phone call that threatened to unravel everything. Mom called on a Tuesday evening in April. I was preparing dinner while Natalie worked late at the office. The kitchen was filled with the aroma of garlic and basil as I experimented with a new pasta recipe. "Gage, honey, I need to tell you something." Mom began, her voice uncharacteristically hesitant. I felt a familiar tightness in my chest, the body's memory of past pain. "What is it, Mom?" She took a deep breath. "Trevor called today. He and Amanda are coming home for a visit next weekend." The wooden spoon slipped from my fingers, clattering against the stovetop. "What? Why? Now?" He did not say exactly. "Just that they want to see everyone." Her voice dropped lower. "Your father is not happy about it." I could imagine Dad's reaction. Robert Williams was not a man who forgave easily, especially when it came to betrayal of family. He had barely spoken Trevor's name in 4 years. "Are you going to see them?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "They are staying here," Mom confirmed. "I know it is a lot to ask, but we would love for you to come to dinner on Saturday. The whole family together again." The thought of sitting across a table from Trevor and Amanda made my stomach churn. All the progress I had made, all the healing suddenly felt fragile. "I do not know if I can do that, Mom. I understand, sweetheart. Just think about it, okay? It might be good for you, for closure." After hanging up, I immediately called Natalie. She listened patiently as I explained the situation, my words tumbling out in a jumbled mess of anger and anxiety. "What do you want to do?" she asked. When I finally paused for breath, part of me wants to ignore the whole thing, pretend they do not exist. And the other part, I sighed, recognizing the truth. The other part wants to show them how well I am doing without them. "Is that petty?" Natalie laughed gently. "It is human. And for what it is worth, I think you should go." "You do?" "Yes, but not alone. I will be right there with you." Her offer lifted some of the weight from my shoulders. Having Natalie beside me would make the ordeal bearable, perhaps even empowering. Later that night, I called my father. Unlike Mom, he made no attempt to hide his feelings about the upcoming visit. "Your brother has some nerve showing his face here after what he did," Dad growled, "and bringing her with him no less." "Are you going to be civil?" I asked, knowing my father's capacity for coldness when he felt wronged. There was a pause before he answered. "I will be in the same room as him. That is as much as I can promise right now." The days leading up to the family dinner crawled by with excruciating slowness. I found myself distracted at work, missing details in meetings, and snapping at colleagues over minor issues. Nights were worse. Old dreams resurface, haunting my sleep. In one, I walked endlessly through my old house, hearing Amanda and Trevor laughing behind doors I could never open. Natalie noticed my deteriorating state and suggested I talk to Dr. Lewis again. The emergency session helped ground me. "You are not the same person they hurt 4 years ago," Dr. Lewis reminded me. "You have grown. You have healed. Remember that when you see them." By Saturday morning, I had settled on a strategy. I would be polite but distant. I would not give Trevor the satisfaction of seeing me upset or angry. I would show him and Amanda through my demeanor and my success that they had not broken me. Natalie and I drove to my parents' house that evening, arriving deliberately 15 minutes late to avoid any awkward greetings at the door. My hands trembled slightly as I turned off the engine. "Ready?" Natalie asked, giving my hand a reassuring squeeze. I nodded, though ready was the last thing I felt. Walking into my childhood home felt surreal. The familiar sense of Mom's cooking, the sound of voices from the living room, all seemed like part of a dream or perhaps a nightmare. And then there they were. Trevor looked older than his 32 years, with new lines around his eyes and noticeably thinner hair. He wore an expensive-looking watch that seemed at odds with his slightly rumpled clothes. Amanda had changed her hair, cutting the long auburn locks I had once loved into a short, stylish bob. She looked up when we entered, her eyes meeting mine briefly before darting away. "Gage," Mom said, rushing forward to hug me. "And Natalie. I am so glad you both came." Trevor stood, offering a smile that did not reach his eyes. "Hey, big brother. Long time no see." I nodded stiffly, not trusting myself to speak yet. Natalie stepped forward, her arm linked protectively through mine. "I have heard so much about this house," she said smoothly. "Thank you for inviting us, Mrs. Williams." The initial tension was somewhat diffused by Mom's fussing over dinner preparations. I offered to help, grateful for the excuse to leave the room. In the kitchen, Dad was aggressively chopping vegetables, his jaw set in a hard line. "They have been here for 2 hours, he muttered. "Already asking about money." "What do you mean?" Dad shook his head. "Trevor mentioned some business opportunity he needs investors for, not even through the first drink, and already reaching for my wallet." Dinner was an exercise in forced politeness. Mom maintained a stream of conversation about neutral topics: the weather, the neighbors, recent renovations to the house. But as the meal progressed and wine was consumed, Trevor grew increasingly bold. "So Gage," he said, during a lull in conversation, "Mom tells me you are in Chicago now, still with the same company." "Yes," I answered curtly. "I am running the product development department now." Trevor nodded, a slight smirk playing at his lips. "Always the company man. Some things never change." "Some things do," Natalie interjected, placing her hand over mine on the table. "Gage has been recognized as one of the top innovators in his field. His team just launched a product that doubled the company's quarterly profits." I shot her a grateful look as Trevor's smirk faltered momentarily. "Well, the corporate world never appealed to me," he said dismissively. "Too many rules, too much structure. I prefer the freedom of entrepreneurship." Dad snorted quietly but said nothing. "What about you, Trevor?" I asked, feigning interest. "Mom mentioned you have been between jobs." A flash of annoyance crossed his face. "I have been exploring options. Actually, I am on the verge of a major opportunity, a startup that is going to revolutionize social media marketing." "That sounds interesting," Mom said encouragingly. "Does it have something to do with why you wanted to visit?" Trevor exchanged a quick glance with Amanda. "Partly. We have been thinking it might be time for a change of scenery, maybe coming back east for a while." "I see." Dad said, his first contribution to the conversation. "And this would require what exactly?" "A place to stay. Financial backing." The directness of the question hung in the air like a challenge. Trevor shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "We are just considering our options right now," Amanda said, her voice softer than I remembered. This was the first time she had spoken directly since basic greetings when we arrived. As the meal continued, Trevor became increasingly aggressive, particularly toward me. Each question about my life became an opportunity for a subtle dig. Each achievement I mentioned was met with a dismissive comment or an attempt to one-up me with exaggerated stories of his own success. "Remember that trip we took to Colorado?" Trevor asked, suddenly turning to Amanda. "The one where we went hiking in the Rockies. Much more adventurous than anything we ever did in Michigan, right?" Amanda looked uncomfortable, but nodded. It was beautiful, she said quietly. We should tell them about our apartment in Seattle. Trevor continued warming to his theme. The view of Puget Sound from our bedroom. You can see the entire city. I knew what he was doing. These were not innocent reminiscences. They were calculated barbs, designed to remind me of what I had lost of the life they had built on the ruins of my heartbreak. Despite my resolve to stay calm, I felt my anger rising. Tell me, Gage, Trevor said, topping off his wine glass. For the fourth time, do you ever think about what might have been if you had been a more attentive husband? Perhaps. If you had noticed what was happening under your own roof, Trevor, Amanda hissed, clearly mortified. What I am just making conversation. Family catching up right. The cruel gleam in his eye made it clear he was enjoying this. It is not my fault if my brother was too blind to see that his wife was unhappy. Natalie tensed beside me, but I placed a calming hand on her knee. I would not give him the satisfaction of seeing me lose control. I think we should change the subject, Mom suggested desperately. But Trevor was not finished. Emboldened by alcohol and what he perceived as my passive acceptance of his taunts, he leaned forward. You know, Gage, Amanda and I often talk about how different things might have been if she had met me first, how much time we would have saved. He reached over and took Amanda's hand possessively. But then again, sometimes you have to experience the wrong relationship to appreciate the right one. Amanda pulled her hand away, her face flushed with embarrassment. Trevor, that is enough, she whispered. No, let him continue, I said evenly. I am curious to hear more about this perfect relationship that required betraying your own brother to begin. Trevor's eyes narrowed. You always were self-righteous. Did it ever occur to you that Amanda and I could not help how we felt, that some connections are just stronger than others? Is that what you tell yourself to sleep at night? I sleep just fine. Trevor snapped, though the defensive tone suggested otherwise. We are planning to start a family soon, by the way. Something you two never quite got around to. That was the moment I nearly lost my composure. The thought of Trevor and Amanda having children together, something we had once planned for our future, felt like a final twist of the knife. Before I could respond, a sharp bang echoed through the dining room as Dad slammed his hand down on the table. Everyone froze, startled by the sudden noise and the fury radiating from my usually controlled father. That is enough, Trevor, Dad said, his voice low but vibrating with intensity. Trevor blinked in surprise. In all our years growing up, I could count on one hand the times our father had raised his voice or shown such open anger. I have sat here all evening listening to you disrespect your brother in his own family home. Dad continued, each word precisely measured. I have watched you flaunt your relationship built on deception. And now you have the audacity to speak of starting a family as if what you did has no moral consequence. Trevor's face reddened. Dad, I was not finished speaking. Dad cut him off with a sharp gesture. You came here with a purpose, and it was not to reconnect with your family. Your mother may have told you that I would not discuss this at dinner, but since you have chosen to behave this way, let me be perfectly clear about where things stand. He turned to face Amanda. Would you care to tell everyone why you are really here, or should I? Amanda looked down at her plate, unable to meet anyone's eyes. After a moment of uncomfortable silence, she spoke softly. We have been having some financial difficulties. Financial difficulties, Dad repeated. That is one way to put it. Another would be that Trevor has accumulated substantial debt with his failed business ventures. Your lease in Seattle is not being renewed, and you came here hoping for a bailout and a place to stay. The revelation hung in the air like a thundercloud. Mom looked pained but not surprised. She had known, I realized. This was why she had been so insistent that I attend tonight. How did you know that Trevor demanded, his earlier bravado evaporating? Your mother and I still have friends in Seattle, and unlike you, they believe in honesty. Dad folded his hands on the table. So, let me make this very clear. There will be no money without accountability. There will be no extended stay in this house without respect. And there will certainly be no pretending that what you did to your brother was anything but a profound betrayal of this family. Trevor's face contorted between anger and humiliation. He opened his mouth to respond, but I chose that moment to stand up. All eyes turned to me as I straightened my shoulders and looked directly at Trevor for the first time that evening. For years, I had imagined what I would say if I ever saw him again. I had rehearsed angry tirades, cutting insults, dramatic denouncements. But standing there, seeing the pathetic figure my brother had become, none of those prepared speeches felt necessary. "You know," I said calmly, "for years, I wondered what was wrong with me. What flaw Amanda had seen that made her choose you instead. I tortured myself, thinking about how I had failed as a husband and a brother." I took Natalie's hand as she stood beside me, her presence giving me strength. "But now I see the truth. What happened was never about my shortcomings. It was about your inability to be happy with your own life, Trevor. You have always wanted what I had, not because you truly desired it, but because it was mine." I turned to Amanda. "And you mistook novelty for love. You chose excitement over substance. That is a pattern that follows you still, from what I can see." Amanda's eyes filled with tears. "Gage, I am so sorry. I never meant to." "I know you did not mean to hurt me," I interrupted gently, "but intentions do not erase consequences. What matters is what we do after we cause harm." I looked around at my family at the dinner table, where we had shared countless meals and happier times. I have spent 4 years rebuilding my life. I have a career I am proud of, a relationship based on mutual respect. I squeezed Natalie's hand, and I have found happiness I never thought possible after what you two did. Trevor scoffed, though the sound lacked conviction. "So you have moved on. Good for you. Why are you telling us this?" "Because I want to thank you," I replied, surprising everyone, including myself. "In a strange way, your betrayal forced me to become a stronger, more authentic version of myself. If you had not taken what I thought I could not live without, I might never have discovered what I truly needed." Mom wiped away tears, and Dad nodded slightly, a look of pride in his eyes. "Natalie and I are going home now," I continued. "Mom, Dad, thank you for dinner. Trevor, Amanda." I acknowledged them with a slight nod. "I wish you both well in figuring out your lives. I truly do." As Natalie and I walked toward the door, Trevor called after me. "That is it. 4 years, and all you have is some self-help wisdom to share. What happened to the brother? I knew I turned back one last time. He grew up, Trevor. Maybe someday you will too." The drive back to our hotel was quiet, both of us processing the intense evening. It was Natalie who finally broke the silence. "I am so proud of you," she said. "You were the strongest person in that room tonight." I reached for her hand. "I could not have done it without you there." In the weeks that followed, Mom kept me updated on what happened after we left. Trevor and Amanda stayed with my parents for 2 weeks. During that time, Dad helped Trevor create a realistic plan to address his debt contingent on him finding steady employment. Amanda decided to return to Michigan, permanently moving in with her sister, while she re-established her career. Their relationship, already strained before the visit, did not survive the separation. Trevor eventually found a job with an old friend's construction company. It was not glamorous work, but it was honest and provided a stable income. According to Mom, he was slowly showing signs of maturity and responsibility. He had even asked tentatively if I might be willing to speak with him sometime. I am not ready for that conversation yet. Forgiveness is a journey, not a destination, and I am still finding my way. But I no longer carry the burning resentment that once consumed me. The betrayal will always be part of my story, but it no longer defines me. 6 months after the dinner, Natalie and I got engaged. We are planning a small ceremony next spring with close friends and family. My parents will be there, of course. As for Trevor, that bridge might be rebuilt someday, but only if it is founded on genuine remorse and changed behavior. The greatest lesson I learned through all of this is that sometimes losing what you thought you needed is the only way to find what you truly deserve. The people who hurt us do not determine our worth. The love we lost does not dictate our capacity for future happiness. And sometimes, the most profound act of self-respect is to walk away from those who betrayed you with your dignity intact. Have you ever experienced betrayal from someone close to you? How did you handle it? Let me know in the comments below. If my story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more stories of resilience and growth. And if you know someone who might be struggling with betrayal, share this video with them. Sometimes knowing we are not alone in our pain can be the first step toward healing. Thank you for listening. And remember, your worth is never determined by those who failed to see it.